North Korea is making bolder threats against the U.S. You didn't hear a lot about that during the press briefing, right? Plus, there's more deaths in Afghanistan. At least 4 people killed today in protests. Demonstrators demanding the resignation of the government in the wake of that deadly truck bombing in Kabul that killed 90 people this week. Michael Waltz is a former Green Beret commander, counter-terror advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, author of the book Warrior Diplomat, and a Fox News contributor. Quite a title. Michael, it's great to have you on the program. See you again. Let me just pick up a little bit off of what our previous conversation was about. We are seeing such outrage about this particular issue, and everyone has their right to be outraged about whatever they want. But I'm curious, as a veteran, how you see it, because we don't get the same outrage about nuclear North Korea. We don't get the exact same outrage about a terror attack in Manchester that kills little girls. And I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Well, look, Jenna, I'm looking at this through the lens of national security, and the Defense Department, a number of admirals and generals, even Secretary Mattis in his confirmation testimony, pointed to drought, famine, natural disasters, and other effects of a warming Earth, of climate change, as a national security issue. And those issues lead to, failed states that terrorist groups are taking care of that we have to deal with. So I'd like to see the United States continue a leadership role. Whether we do that through an accord or whether we do that through the private sector, we do need to, from a military standpoint, even a national security standpoint, deal with the effects of a warming Earth. Well,
I am curious about the emotion, though. Again, as a wife of a combat veteran, seeing our men and women come back from war zones and seeing the emotion about this issue and this decision by the president and not seeing it in some of those other areas, it's striking to me. Our viewers can make up their mind about what they think about it, but that's why I was curious about, as someone that has deployed before.
Well, it is. It's striking to me as well. I mean, Afghanistan barely makes the news. We have almost 10,000 soldiers there. We have Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and others on the pointy end of that spear that are being killed every week. And there doesn't seem to be the same level of outrage that I think you raise a valid point there.
I'm just curious about it. It's interesting. Yeah. This is part of the study and the observation that is journalism. So it's one I'll continue to ask the question about. Michael, I am curious about North Korea, though, because this continues to pop up in the news. Ian Bremmer, who's a lead thinker when it comes to foreign policy, had a really interesting point. He said on North Korea, Trump could either start a war or win a Nobel Peace Prize. And he went on to say, ultimately, either the U.S. backs down and accepts this continued slow deterioration of the status quo, or the U.S. does something, like engages in direct strikes against North Korea. Here, you're kind of hitting a box. You don't know what's in the box. You don't know if the box is going to fall apart. You don't know what's going to come out of that box. It's pretty dangerous. Ian actually told me a few weeks ago, Michael, that he wouldn't be against Donald Trump reaching out to North Korea. If other negotiations haven't worked, why not try it? What do you think about where we are at this time?
Well, I think what he's getting at, the bottom line, is that we just can't let the status quo continue. The Clinton administration tried to reach a deal with the North Koreans, clearly used to continue to build their program. I served in the Bush administration with the 6-party talks. Those didn't work. I think the Obama administration basically did nothing. And now we have North Korea not only on the verge of being able to strike the United States, but we have to remember, we have security treaties with Japan and South Korea. If he, in the very near term, is able to hit our allies with a nuclear short-range missile, not an ICBM, but even an easier to achieve short-range missile, we're going to have to act. So what Ian's getting at is whether we do something bold, like have the President of the United States sit down with Kim Jong-un and try to come to an agreement, or whether we end up having to take a military action. We need to do something different. Now, I think there's a lot of in-between things that we can do there. There's covert operations. Of course, there's cyber. There's a very aggressive kind of missile defense. And, I'd even like to see even more pressure on the Chinese. I think the Chinese have the ability to possibly even engineer some regime change there and put someone more reasonable in place that'll also work with the Chinese and allay their fears of a unified Korea that doesn't work in their interest.
Well, that would be a huge move if that was the case. One of the things, again, we're looking at in this program is how do you prioritize all these things? A nuclear North Korea, Afghanistan sending troops there, floods and storms, and what do you think about global warming and climate change? So the priority is interesting. Michael, it's great to have you on the program. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jenna.